For 4 years, the bruises were carefully hidden beneath oversized sweaters, and her silent tears were swallowed in the dead of night. She believed she was entirely unlovable, trapped with a monster. But everything shattered the night Chicago's most ruthless crime boss decided she belonged to him. The digital clock on the microwave glared a neon green, 11:42 p.m. Harper Quinn stood perfectly still in the cramped kitchen of their Logan Square apartment, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She was 28 years old, carrying well over 250 pounds on a 5'4" frame, a physical reality that her boyfriend, Derek Caulfield, made sure she never, ever forgot. For 4 long years, Harper had existed in a psychological and physical prison. Derek was a mid-level collections manager at a sleazy auto loan firm, a man whose ambition vastly outpaced his actual talent. To the outside world, to neighbors like old Mrs. Gable in apartment 4B, or the barista at the corner coffee shop, Derek was a charismatic, hard-working guy carrying the burden of a lazy, overweight girlfriend. Behind closed doors, Derek was a monster. He had meticulously engineered her isolation. First, he convinced her that her friends were secretly mocking her weight behind her back. Then, he took control of the finances, claiming she spent too much on junk when she tried to buy groceries. He weaponized her body against her, breaking her self-esteem into such microscopic pieces that Harper genuinely believed no one else would ever look twice at her. "You're fat, Harper," he would whisper, his fingers digging into the soft flesh of her waist until it bruised. "You're fat, you're disgusting, and you should be on your hands and knees, thanking God I even tolerate looking at you." Tonight, the apartment smelled of burnt garlic and stale fear. Harper had accidentally overcooked the pasta. It was a minor mistake, a distraction born of exhaustion after working a 12-hour remote data entry shift. But in Derek's world, there were no minor mistakes. The heavy front door swung open, hitting the drywall with a familiar thud. Derek stepped in, smelling of cheap whiskey, cheap cologne, and the sharp scent of winter rain. "Harper," he slurred, shucking off his damp coat and throwing it onto the floor. "Where is my dinner?" Harper wiped her trembling, sweaty hands on her apron. It's on the stove, Derek. I'll plate it right now." He stalked into the kitchen, his eyes bloodshot and narrowed. He didn't look at the plate she was hurriedly preparing. He looked at her. He looked at the soft curve of her stomach, the fullness of her arms, and his upper lip curled in profound disgust. "Did you eat half of it already? Is that why you're sweating? Sweating like a pig just from standing in a kitchen?" "No, I haven't eaten," Harper whispered, her eyes fixed on the linoleum floor. Derek snatched the plate from her hands. He looked at the slightly browned pasta, then back at her. With a sudden, explosive motion, he hurled the ceramic plate against the wall. It shattered, sending sharp shards and hot noodles raining down onto the floor. "You useless fat cow!" Derek roared, his hand shooting out. He grabbed a fistful of her hair, yanking her head back so sharply her neck popped. Harper cried out, a pathetic, broken sound that only seemed to fuel his rage. He backhanded her across the face. The heavy silver ring he wore on his middle finger caught her cheekbone, slicing the skin. Blood instantly welled up, warm and thick, tracking down her round cheek. "Clean it up," Derek spat, letting go of her hair and shoving her hard against the counter. Harper's heavy body slammed into the edge of the granite, knocking the wind completely out of her lungs. She crumpled to the floor, gasping for air, the sharp shards of ceramic biting into her knees. As Derek turned his back to grab a beer from the fridge, something inside Harper finally snapped. It wasn't bravery, it was pure, unadulterated survival instinct, the primal realization that if she stayed on this kitchen floor, she was going to die here. Without thinking, she scrambled to her feet. She didn't grab her purse. She didn't grab her keys. She didn't even grab her winter coat. Wearing only a thin, oversized grey cardigan and a pair of worn-out leggings, Harper bolted for the front door. "Hey, where do you think you're all going?" Derek yelled, dropping the beer bottle. Harper slammed the apartment door shut behind her and ran. She flew down the 3 flights of stairs, her heavy footfalls echoing in the silent building. She burst out into the freezing November night. The rain had turned to sleet, stinging her face like tiny needles, washing the blood from her cheek down her neck. She ran blindly. Her lungs burned, her thighs chafed, and her chest heaved with agonizing effort. But she didn't stop. She navigated the dark, slippery pavements of Chicago, moving toward the glowing neon lights of the downtown district. She didn't know where she was going, only that it had to be public. It had to be somewhere well lit. Behind her, she heard the screech of tires, Derek's rusted sedan. He was looking for her. Panic seized her throat. Harper ducked into a narrow, dimly lit alleyway, behind a row of upscale restaurants and exclusive clubs on Rush Street. The alley was dead silent, save for the hum of massive industrial HVAC units. She crouched behind a heavy steel dumpster, pressing her back against the freezing brick wall, trying desperately to muffle her ragged, gasping breaths. She wrapped her thick arms around her shivering body, burying her bleeding face in her knees. "Please," she prayed to a god she hadn't spoken to in years. "Please just let him drive past." But the crunch of gravel at the mouth of the alley made her heart stop. "You think you can run from me?" Derek's voice echoed off the brick walls, dripping with venom. "You think you can waddle your fat ass away from me and hide, Harper?" Footsteps approached, slow and deliberate. Harper squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for the blows she knew were coming. Derek rounded the dumpster. His face was twisted in a snarl of pure hatred. He reached down, grabbing the collar of her cardigan and hauling her upward with brutal force. "You embarrass me," Derek hissed, pinning her against the brick wall. His forearm pressed against her throat, cutting off her air supply. Harper clawed helplessly at his arm, her vision beginning to swim with dark spots. "I'm going to beat you until you can't even crawl." "Let her go." The voice did not come from Derek, and it did not come from Harper. It was a deep, gravelly baritone that seemed to absorb the cold air around it. The command wasn't shouted. It was spoken with the quiet, terrifying authority of a man who was utterly unaccustomed to being ignored. Derek froze, his arm still pressed against Harper's throat. He turned his head. Standing 10 feet away, stepping out from the heavy steel back door of the obsidian lounge, were 2 men. The man slightly behind was built like a tank, wearing a dark suit and holding an umbrella. But it was the man in front who commanded the alleyway. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and impeccably dressed in a custom-tailored charcoal overcoat that screamed wealth. His dark hair was slicked back, and his sharp, angular face was cast in the shadows of the alley's solitary security light. This was Victor Rossi. To the IRS, he was a real estate developer. To the streets of Chicago, he was the undisputed head of the Rossi crime family, a syndicate that controlled everything from the docks to the underground casinos. Victor hated loud noises. He despised domestic disturbances near his establishments. But most of all, Victor Rossi possessed a deeply ingrained, violent intolerance for cowards. "I said," Victor repeated, taking a slow step forward, the expensive leather of his shoes silent on the wet pavement. "Let her go." Derek sneered, though Harper could feel the sudden tremor in the arm pinning her. "Mind your own business, buddy. This is my girlfriend. We're just having a disagreement. She needs to learn her place." Victor's dark eyes shifted from Derek to Harper. He took in the sight of her. He saw her heavy, trembling frame. He saw the soaked, cheap cardigan clinging to her thick arms. He saw the terrified, round face, the split cheek, and the blood mixing with the freezing sleet. Derek had always told Harper that her fatness made her repulsive, invisible to other men, unless it was for a joke. But Victor Rossi did not look at her with disgust. He looked at her with a terrifying, piercing intensity. "Her place," Victor echoed softly. He snapped his fingers. The tank-like man behind him moved with shocking speed. Before Derek could even blink, the bodyguard had crossed the distance, gripped Derek by the back of the neck, and slammed him face first into the brick wall. Derek screamed as his nose shattered with a sickening crunch. He dropped to the ground, writhing and clutching his face. Harper collapsed against the wall, gasping for air, sliding down until she was sitting on the wet concrete. She was shaking violently, unable to process the sudden, brutal shift in reality. Victor walked over, completely ignoring Derek, who was currently whimpering and bleeding onto the asphalt. Victor stopped directly in front of Harper. He slowly crouched down, his expensive overcoat brushing against the filthy ground, completely unbothered by the grime. Up close, Harper could see the faint scar cutting through his left eyebrow and smell the expensive scent of bergamot and cedarwood. She cowered, expecting this new, dangerous man to hurt her too. Instead, Victor reached into his breast pocket and withdrew a pristine, monogrammed black silk handkerchief. He held it out to her. Harper stared at it, her chest heaving. She slowly reached out a trembling, chubby hand and took it, pressing it against her bleeding cheek. "What is your name?" Victor asked. His voice was no longer a harsh command. It was a low, steady rumble. "Key Harper," she stammered, her teeth chattering uncontrollably from the cold and the shock. "Harper Quinn." Victor's eyes swept over her again. "Harper, does that piece of garbage belong to you?" He gestured vaguely toward Derek, who was now being hauled to his feet by the bodyguard. He's my boyfriend," Harper whispered, fresh tears spilling over her lashes. "Please don't kill him. I just want to go home." "No, wait, I can't go home." The realization hit her like a physical blow. She had nowhere to go. She had no money, no phone, no family left in the city. Derek, spitting blood, managed to garble out, "You're dead! You hear me? You have no idea who I am." Victor stood up slowly. He turned to Derek, and the temperature in the alley seemed to plummet another 10 degrees. "I know exactly what you are," Victor said coldly. "You are a weak man who beats a woman to feel large. And now you are trespassing on my property." Victor looked at his bodyguard. "Vinny, take Mr. Caulfield to the warehouse on 18th Street. Explain to him the penalty for making a mess behind my club. If he survives the lesson, ensure he understands that if he ever speaks to, looks at, or breathes the same air as Miss Quinn again, I will personally remove his eyes." Derek's bravado vanished instantly, replaced by a shrill, pathetic squeal of terror as Vinny dragged him effortlessly down the dark alley, tossing him into the back of a waiting black SUV. Silence descended on the alley again, save for the sleet hitting the metal dumpsters. Harper was paralyzed. The man she had feared for 4 years had just been swatted away like a bothersome fly. She looked up at Victor, her wide, tear-filled eyes meeting his impenetrable dark stare. "He's gone," Victor said, turning his attention back to her. "But you are freezing, bleeding, and by your own admission, homeless, Harper Quinn." I don't know what to do," Harper sobbed, burying her face in the black silk handkerchief. The sheer exhaustion of 4 years of abuse finally crashed down on her shoulders. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I'm a mess. I know I'm pathetic." "Stop apologizing," Victor snapped, though not unkindly. He reached down, offering her a large, scarred hand. Harper looked at his hand. "I'm heavy," she whispered, a deep, ingrained shame coloring her words. "You won't be able to pull me up." A ghost of a smirk touched Victor's lips. "Try me." Tentatively, Harper placed her hand in his. Victor's grip was iron-strong. With a smooth, powerful pull, he hauled her to her feet, as if she weighed absolutely nothing. Harper stumbled, her legs weak, and collided with his solid chest. She braced herself to be pushed away, disgusted by her own clumsiness and size, but Victor's hands simply shot out, steadying her firmly by the waist. "You owe me a debt now, Harper," Victor said softly, his thumbs resting against the curve of her hips. "And I always collect my debts. Come inside." Without waiting for a response, Victor Rossi, the most feared man in Chicago, took off his custom overcoat and draped it over Harper's shivering, heavy shoulders. He guided her through the heavy steel doors of the club, leading her out of the freezing rain and into a dangerous new world. Harper woke to the smell of fresh espresso and the unfamiliar sensation of high-thread count silk against her skin. She panicked, thrashing against the heavy duvet, fully expecting Derek's calloused hands to strike her for oversleeping. Instead, she found herself alone in a bedroom larger than her entire Logan Square apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gray, churning waters of Lake Michigan. She was in a sprawling lake forest estate. She was wearing a plush, oversized robe that smelled of expensive detergent, and her cheek felt stiff. Touching her face, she felt a pristine medical bandage. "Good morning." Harper jumped. Victor Rossi was standing in the doorway, dressed in a crisp white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle and faint ink. He carried a silver tray laden with buttered croissants, scrambled eggs, thick-cut bacon, and a steaming mug of coffee. Harper instinctively shrank back into the headboard, pulling the duvet over her stomach and thick thighs. You brought me food?" she stammered, the old shame burning her throat. Derek had always forced her to eat cold leftovers, telling her she didn't deserve fresh meals. Victor set the tray on her lap. "Doctor, Jonathan Aris from Northwestern Memorial came by last night while you slept. He stitched your cheek. You suffered minor concussion, Harper. You need sustenance." Harper stared at the feast, her mouth watering, but her deep-seated fear paralyzed her. "I shouldn't," she whispered, looking away. I'm already too fat. I shouldn't eat this." Victor's jaw tightened. He sat on the edge of the mattress, his heavy weight dipping the bed. He reached out, his large hand gently cupping her uninjured cheek. "Look at me." "Harper." She forced her tearful eyes to meet his dark, unyielding gaze. "The man who put those lies in your head is currently chained to a radiator in a meat-packing facility," Victor said, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. "In my world, a woman with flesh on her bones is a symbol of wealth, of comfort, of a life well lived. You are soft, you are substantial, and I will not have you starving yourself in my house. Eat." His words short-circuited 4 years of psychological torture. Slowly, Harper picked up a croissant. It was warm, flaky, and tasted like heaven. As she ate, she expected him to look away in disgust. Instead, Victor watched her with a heavy, hooded intensity that made her pulse race for an entirely different reason. Once she finished, Victor pulled a thick manila folder from his side. His expression shifted from protective to strictly business. "You asked me why I brought you here," Victor said, opening the file. "Vinny didn't just beat your boyfriend. He took his phone and his laptop. I had Paul Ciolino, one of the best private investigators in Chicago, rip through his hard drives overnight. Derek Caulfield wasn't just abusing you, Harper. He was using you to sign your own death warrant." Harper's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" Victor spread out dozens of documents. They were bank statements, loan applications, and corporate tax filings. Derek managed collections for a sleazy auto loan firm, but that was a front. He was actually laundering money for the O'Bannon family, the Irish syndicate that runs the South Side, and he was stealing from them. Harper squinted at the papers. Her breath hitched. Her name was on every single document. Harper Quinn, CEO. Harper Quinn, primary guarantor. "He stole nearly $4 million, Victor explained grimly. "He set up shell companies using your social security number and your signature. The O'Bannons found out 3 days ago. The reason Derek was so volatile last night wasn't because of overcooked pasta. It was because the Irish gave him a 48-hour deadline to produce the missing cash, or they were going to kill the guarantor. You." The room spun. The 4 years of isolation, the financial control, forcing her to live in fear. It wasn't just cruelty. It was a calculated, cold-blooded setup. Derek had groomed her to be his perfect, terrified scapegoat. If he fled, the Irish mob would slaughter Harper in his place. I didn't know," Harper gasped, clutching her chest as a panic attack threatened to suffocate her. "I swear to God, Mr. Rossi, I didn't know." "Victor," he corrected smoothly, taking both of her trembling hands in his. "I know you didn't. You're a data entry clerk with a spotless record. But the O'Bannons don't care about the truth. They only care about the paper. To them, you owe a $4 million debt." Harper began to sob, the crushing weight of her reality finally breaking her. "They're going to kill me. Even if I leave Chicago, they'll find me." "No," Victor said, his voice slicing through her panic like a steel blade. He squeezed her hands tightly. "They are not going to touch a single hair on your head, because I have decided that your debt belongs to me now, and no one touches what is mine." The war began the very next evening. Victor had transferred Harper to a secure suite in his downtown penthouse, a fortress of bulletproof glass and steel overlooking the magnificent Mile. Harper had spent the day pacing, terrified. Victor's tailor had arrived, taking her measurements with profound respect and delivering a wardrobe of luxurious, perfectly fitted clothes, emerald green wrap dresses, high-waisted silk trousers, and cashmere sweaters that complemented her full, voluptuous figure instead of hiding it. For the first time in years, she looked in the mirror and did not hate the woman staring back. But the newfound confidence was shattered when the penthouse elevators suddenly shut down. Emergency red lights flared to life in the living room. Victor strode into the room, drawing a heavy, suppressed tactical pistol from his shoulder holster. Vinny was right behind him, carrying an assault rifle. "The O'Bannons," Victor said calmly, though his eyes burned with a lethal fire. "Derek must have cracked and told them I took you. They bypassed the lobby security. "Victor, give me to them," Harper pleaded, her heart hammering wildly. "You don't need to die for me. I'm nobody." Victor stopped, turning to face her. Amidst the blaring alarms, he grabbed her by the shoulders. "You are not nobody. You are Harper, and I would burn this entire city to the ground before I let another man lay a hand on you." He kissed her forehead, a firm, desperate press of his lips. "Stay in the panic room. Lock the steel door." Vinny shoved her into a reinforced room off the master bedroom and slammed the heavy vault door shut. The thick steel muffled the explosive chaos that erupted outside. Harper huddled in the corner, staring at the bank of security monitors on the wall. She watched in horror as a dozen armed men spilled into Victor's penthouse. The ensuing gunfight was brutal, calculated, and violently swift. Victor moved like a shadow, precise and ruthless, dropping intruders with terrifying efficiency. Vinny provided heavy cover fire, shredding the expensive furniture. But then Harper saw something on the secondary monitor: the service stairwell camera. While the main force engaged Victor in the living room, a lone figure was creeping up the back stairs, carrying a heavy duffel bag. It was Derek. His face was a bruised, swollen mess, and he looked unhinged. He was bypassing the gunfight, heading straight for the master bedroom. He had given the O'Bannons Victor's layout in exchange for a chance to extract his scapegoat. Harper realized he was going to flank Victor from behind. She didn't freeze. The 4 years of cowering in a kitchen were gone, burned away by Victor's belief in her. Harper looked around the panic room. Her eyes landed on the emergency override panel. She possessed an intimate understanding of complex digital systems from her years of data entry and coding. Derek slipped into the master bedroom, pulling a shotgun from his duffel bag, aiming it directly at Victor's unprotected back through the open doorway. Harper slammed her fist into the security console, triggering the penthouse's fire suppression system specifically in the master bedroom. A deafening blast of high-pressure halon gas and chemical foam exploded from the ceiling directly above Derek. He screamed, completely blinded, dropping the shotgun as the violent spray knocked him off balance. Hearing the commotion behind him, Victor spun around. Seeing Derek blinded and reaching for his weapon, Victor didn't hesitate. He raised his pistol and fired 2 suppressed rounds. Derek collapsed onto the foam-covered carpet, motionless. Within minutes, the remaining O'Bannon men were dead or fleeing. The vault door hissed open. Harper stood there, trembling, wearing her emerald-green silk dress. Victor stepped into the room, his white shirt splattered with blood, his breathing heavy. He looked at the security monitors, seeing the overridden fire system, and realized exactly what she had done. He dropped his gun, crossed the room in 2 massive strides, and hauled Harper against his chest. His large hands tangled in her hair, and before she could speak, he crushed his mouth against hers. It was a kiss born of adrenaline, blood, and a desperate, possessive relief. Harper gasped, melting against him. She wrapped her thick arms around his broad shoulders, kissing him back with a fierce, hungry passion she didn't know she possessed. When Victor finally pulled back, he rested his forehead against hers, both of them panting. "You saved my life," he rasped, his thumbs tracing the soft, flushed curves of her cheeks. "We're even," Harper whispered, a tear slipping down her face. "No," Victor corrected fiercely, pulling her tight against his body, pressing her soft curves against his hard muscles. "We will never be even. I am going to spend the rest of my life spoiling you, protecting you, and worshipping every single inch of this body. The O'Bannons are finished. Derek is dead. You are free, Harper. But I am begging you. Stay with me. Harper looked into the eyes of the ruthless Mafia boss. She thought of the cold, terrified girl shivering in the alleyway. That girl was gone. In her place stood a woman who knew her worth. I'm not going anywhere, Victor, she smiled, pulling him down for another kiss. I'm exactly where I belong. What a thrilling conclusion to Harper's story. From a battered victim to the undisputed queen of the Chicago underworld, she proved that true strength comes from within. Victor Rossi didn't just save her. He helped her discover the power she always had. Did you expect that massive twist about Derek's financial fraud? Let us know your favorite moment in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more.